Thank you very much. We're going to pass from the higher education sector in Morocco to the schools education sector in Morocco, and I'm going to focus primarily on processes rather than substance, and give you a perspective from a multilateral development agency, having worked together with a number of other development agencies to support a government program in Morocco. So I will briefly introduce the Education Emergency Program. In fact, the Minister of Education talked about it yesterday morning. Then speak to you about the objectives of this multi-donor approach, tell you how this consortium was developed, how we work together, and then just reflect briefly on some of the advantages and disadvantages that we find from the donor side, tell you something about the program's achievements and the challenges that it continues to face, and finally come up with a short set of recommendations if you are likely to be in this kind of situation, either as a development agency or as a government agency looking for this kind of support. This Education Emergency Program covers the period 2009-2012. It was developed in part as a response to the findings of a report that was prepared by the independent Higher Council for Education. Mr. Debar just mentioned this in one of his slides. Morocco is in the fortunate position to have not only government departments that take care of education, but also to have an independent institution that evaluates and regularly reports on the progress in the education sector. So this Higher Council for Education produced a report in 2008, which gave rise to a response from government to give a boost to the existing reform process that had begun in 2000. So there is now in place this Education Emergency Program 2009-2012, which focuses student learning on basic competencies, aims to develop a teaching force equipped with the necessary pedagogical methods and tools, and aims at developing a school environment that really enables learning. Just to give you an idea of one of the challenges that Morocco faces, along with a number of other countries in the region, my colleague yesterday highlighted the importance of looking at outcomes rather than inputs, and clearly in the school sector, the most important outcome is what do students learn, what do they know how to do, what competencies do they have when they leave the school system. These are the results from the 2007 International Mathematics and Science Survey for grade 8 students in mathematics. I should add that Morocco has been involved in this survey for a number of years, and in fact has just collected the data for the 2011 survey, and we look forward to those results. The good news here is that a large number of countries in the Middle East, North Africa region, participate in these kinds of surveys, TIMSS and PEARLS in particular. The not so good news is that in terms of international benchmarks, the countries in the region do not perform very well. You'll see in the second column the international medians. There are in fact 4 benchmark levels, and the lowest area in each column represents the proportion of students who were not even able to reach the lowest international benchmark. So, in fact, all of the countries of the Middle East, North Africa region that participated in this particular survey all came in under the international average. You'll see Morocco fourth from the right, in the middle of the region's countries, with something like 70% of students in grade 8 not reaching the lowest benchmark in mathematics. I think another important message to draw from this graph is that resources are not everything. In fact, you'll see Kuwait to the right of Morocco, which spends at much higher rates than a country like Morocco on education. So from the government's perspective, and I am projecting onto the government, I should let the government speak for itself, but our understanding is that the government looked to a multi-donor approach from both a substantive point of view and a process point of view. From the substantive point of view, they were interested in seeing donors work together, number one, interested in having a harmonized series of interventions, looking to be able to speak to a group of donors that came with a consistent message, and therefore that the technical assistance that we brought to the table was also internally coherent. And then on the process side, before the advent of this approach, this ministry, which has always had a number of agency partners, was dealing with each of these partners separately. Just from a logistics point of view, that's a lot of time spent meeting with, responding to, preparing for donor missions, and it was felt that it would be much better to deal with all the donors at once and to have more time to do the real work, which is to implement the program. From the donors' point of view, we had an obligation to adhere to the Paris Declaration. We were ourselves looking for a more coherent approach to bringing financial and technical assistance to the government of Morocco in the education sector. We were also looking for ways to make sure that our assistance was complementary, that we weren't doubling up, but rather combining our efforts in ways that were coherent and complementary. And also we were looking to weigh in with a stronger voice, a more coherent voice in dialogue with government. The multi-donor approach, though, came at the initiative of the government of Morocco, I should say. This was the Ministry of Education and at the time the Secretary of State, who came to, at that time, came to 5 donors and asked them to get together, to knock their heads together and provide joint support for what was emerging as a new reform program. By November 2009, 4 of those donors had signed a memorandum of understanding, which is signed by the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Education, and these donors. And that memorandum of understanding sets out a series of measures that we will be following, the indicators that would allow us to follow the progress of those particular policy measures, and agree on the ways of working together. Through 2009, 2010, 6 separate financing agreements were signed. So you have the French Development Agency, the African Development Bank, the European Investment Bank, the European Union, the World Bank, and the Spanish Development Agency. In the last few months, JICA has expressed an interest in also joining the consortium and came with us on our last mission and is currently in discussions in Tokyo whether they are able indeed to sign in onto the memorandum of understanding. I should say that beyond these 7 donors, there's a wider donor community that has signed what's called a partner framework, a much looser document, and those donors include the Canadian Development Agency, USAID, and Wallonia, Brussels. But the the 6-7 donors that I'm going to talk about now are those that you see in point 3 plus JICA.